Hi everyone. Let's start with Class 8 Geography, Chapter number 2 Land, Soil, Water, Natural Vegetation and Wildlife Resources. Synopsis. This chapter is mainly divided into four main parts. First one, land. Land use and conservation of land resources. Second, soil. Factors of soil formation, degradation of soil, conservation measures. Third, water. Problems of water availability and conservation of water resources. And at last, natural vegetation and wildlife. Distribution of natural vegetation and conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. In this chapter, we are going to discuss all these things in detail. First, land. Land is among the most important natural resource. It covers only 30% of the total area of the Earth's surface, and all part of this small percent are not habitable. 90% of the world population occupies only 30% of the land area. The remaining 70% of the land is either sparsely populated or uninhabitable. The main reason is the uneven distribution of the population in the world is mainly due to the varied characteristics of the land and climate. The rugged topography, steep slopes of the mountains, low-lying areas susceptible to the water, logging, desert areas, thick forest areas are normally sparsely populated or not suitable for habitation. But at the same time, the plains and the river valleys often considered as the suitable land for agriculture. Hence, these are the densely populated areas in the world. The land use. Land is used for different purposes such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads, and setting up of industries. This is termed as land use. We are using the land for different purposes. And for what we are using the land, that is called the land use. Using the land for different purpose, and that is called the land use. The use of land is determined by physical factors such as topography, soil, climate, minerals, and availability of water. Which means the quality of the land is determined by its some physical factors. If the land is so fertile, we will cultivate there. If the land is contain more minerals, we will utilize that minerals for some another purpose. Then, if it is very hilly area, where the agriculture or habitation is not that much suitable, so according to all these factors, we will use the land for different purposes. The next thing we need to discuss the classifications of land on the basis of its ownership. On the basis of ownership, we can classify the land into two. One is private land and second one is community land. From the name itself, we can identify that the private land, which means the land owned by individual. The land owned by one single individual, private individual, is called private land. And at the same time, the community land, which means the land owned by the community for common use, like a collection of fodder, fruits, nuts, or medicinal plants. For example, the forest or national reservoirs. All that type of resources, the forest, commonly owned by the government publicly. It is not owned by any one single individual. It is owned by the government. That is a public property. And we all have the same right over the public property or the forest. Such land is called community land. Next, we need to discuss the conservation of resources. The growing population and their overgrowing demands has led to the large-scale destruction of the forest cover and arable land, and has created a fear of losing these natural resources. Therefore, the present rate of degradation of land must be checked. The land degradation, landslide, soil erosion, desertification are the major threats to the environment due to the growing population and their ever-growing demand. Due to the greed of the human being, we are over-exploiting our natural resources. But we are not aware about what is happening to the soil or what is happening to the earth. The natural resources will perish. So we need to conserve them for the future generation. Afforestation, land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, and check of overgrazing are some of the common methods used to conserve land. We need to, in order to check the land degradation or landslide or soil erosion, we need to improve, or we need to give more importance to the afforestation or the regulated use of chemical pesticides. Through that, we can conserve the natural resources or the soil, and we can preserve it for the future generation. Next, soil. The thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth is called the soil. It is closely linked to the land. Landforms determine the type of soil. Soil is made up of organic matter, minerals, and weathered rocks. Weathered, which means the small pieces of rock, main rock, parent rock. Weathered rocks found on earth. This happens through the process of weathering. The right mix of minerals and organic matter make the soil fertile. The word weathering, which means the breaking up and decay of exposed rock by the temperature changes, frost action, plants, animals, and human activity. Here we can see the structure of soil. First one is the top soil, which contains the humus and vegetation. That is the fertile soil that is essential for the plants. Second one is the subsoil with the sand, silt, and clay. The third one is a weathered rock material or parent material, and at last the parent rock or bedrock. Due to the weathering process, we can see all these changes. Next one is the factors of soil formation. First one is the climate, second time, third one is the biotic, that means the flora and fauna. Next one is topography, and at last the parent rock. First one is the climate, the temperature, rainfall, which influence the rate of weathering and humus formation. And second one is the time, means the time determines the thickness of soil profile. Next one is biota, means the flora and fauna, means the plants and animals affect the rate of humus formation in the soil. Next one is the topography, means the height, if it is a plain land or in the hilly top area, that will determine the soil formation. And another one is parent rock. The parent rock determines the color, texture, chemical properties, mineral, and all such things are determined by the parent rock. Next is degradation of soil. Soil erosion and depletion are the major threat to soil as a result. Both the human and natural factors can lead to the degradation of soil, such as afforestation, overgrazing, rainwash, landslide, and flood. We are familiar with all these things. Since the last 2 or 3 years, we are suffering all these things in our surroundings. The landslide, or here itself we can see some images of landslide, afforestation, or overgrazing, or rainwash. So we need to check all these things, and we need to preserve our natural resources for the future generation. Next one is the conservation measures, how we can preserve the soil. First one is the mulching. Mulching means the bared ground between the plants is covered with a layer of organic matter like straw. It helps to retain the soil moisture. Here is the first image. Near to the plant, we used to keep some kind of natural waste like the straw. And it will help the soil to maintain its moisture. So it will help the soil to avoid the water loss. Second one is the contour barrier. Stones, grass, and soil are used to build barrier along the contours, the hilly or the top hilly area or the slope region. The trenches, means small pits, are made in front of this barrier to collect water. The second image, the slopey area, we will make small barriers with the help of stone or grass or with soil. And it will preserve the soil and it will avoid the soil erosion. And third one is rock dam. Roads are built up, slow down the flow of water. It prevent further soil loss. With the help of stone, we will make small dams and it will avoid the soil erosion. Fourth one is terrace farming. These are made on the steep slope so that flat surfaces are available to grow crops. It will resist further runoff and soil erosion. In the slopey area, the farmers will make the flat platform to cultivate something. It will avoid the soil erosion, which we can see in the first image. The fifth one, intercropping. which means different crops are grown in alternative row and are sown at different time, which means we are cultivating different type of crops in a row in between. Here itself we can find, and these crops are cultivating in different time, so we can use the soil, we can preserve the soil, it will avoid the soil erosion and the maximum utilization of sunlight and water resources which is available in that particular area. So it will avoid the soil erosion and it will help the maximum utilization of soil resources or the natural resources. And sixth one, contour plowing. The plowing parallel to the contour of the hill slope. In the hilly area, they will plowing that hilly area in a contour line, and it will avoid the soil erosion. And the last one is a shelter belt. In the coastal and dry region, rows of trees are planted to check the wind movement to protect soil cover. In the hilly area or in the dry region, we will plant the trees in a row. It will avoid or it will control the wind and it will protect the outer layer of the soil. The third main topic, that is water. Water is a vital renewable natural resource. 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. So it is called the water planet. The Earth is called a unique planet or the water planet or blue planet. The main reason 30% of the land is covered with the land and 70% of the water is land. Earth is covered with the water. So due to that, from the space, the Earth is look like blue in color. Or due to the over presence of water, the Earth is called the blue planet or water planet. Ocean water is saline and not fit for human consumption. Freshwater is only about 2.7%. Nearly 70% of this occurs as ice sheets and glaciers in Antarctica, Greenland, and mountain regions. Only 1% of freshwater is fit for human consumption. We already discussed the Earth is called the water planet or blue planet. But availability of freshwater is so limited. Only 2.7% of the total water present on the Earth is considered as freshwater. Among these 2.7% or among this freshwater, nearly 70% of the water is not directly suitable for human consumption. That is in the form of the ice or the glaciers in northern hemisphere and in southern hemisphere. But only the 1% of the fresh water is directly ready for human consumption. Water is a vital renewable natural resource. 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water, so it is called water planet. Ocean water is saline. The fresh water is only about 2.7% that we already discussed. Here in one side we can find the globe and in one side we can find the world map. The blue color indicates the water. So the presence of water is very high as we compare to the land mass. So due to that, the Earth is called the blue planet or the water planet. These are the different examples of water resources on Earth's surface: the glaciers, sea, rivers, and pond. Next, we need to discuss the problems of water availability. Access to clean and adequate water resource is a major problem facing the world today. Water is a renewable resource. It covers its overuse and pollution make it unfit for use. Discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage, agricultural, chemicals, and industrial influence in water bodies are major contaminants. Water pollution can be controlled by treating these influences suitable before releasing them in water bodies. So due to the overexploitation or due to the greed of human being, we used to pollute the water resources or freshwater resources. That is mainly due to the untreated sewage or agricultural chemicals. So we need to control the use of the chemical fertilizer or pesticides in the soil, and we need to avoid the other chemical waste from the factories. So we need to treat these chemicals before releasing them into the water bodies. Then we can preserve our natural resources or water resource, and we can preserve it for the future generation. Here is some examples: water pollution, from the factory, or we are throwing whatever things we are having, we are throwing it in the nearby water bodies that will pollute our natural or water resources. The conservation of water resources. Forest and other vegetation cover slow the surface runoff and replenish the groundwater resources. Water harvesting, use of sprinklers in dry region, drip or trickle irrigation is very useful. Access the clean and adequate water resource is a major problem facing the world today. Steps have to be taken to conserve this dwindling resource. Even though water is a renewable resource, its reuse and pollution make it unfit for use. Discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage, agricultural chemicals, and industrial influence in water bodies are the major contaminants that we already discussed. So, in order to preserve all these things, we need to increase our water resources through water harvesting methods, and by using the sprinklers, drip irrigation or trickle irrigation, we need to control our water wastage. Through that, we can increase the water resources, we can preserve the water resources. The last and the most important point: natural vegetation and wildlife. Natural vegetation and wildlife exist only in the biosphere. The narrow zone of contact between the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere is called biosphere. Lithosphere, which means Bhumandal, hydrosphere, which means Jalamandal, and atmosphere, the Vayumandal. The combination of these three lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere is called biosphere or Jeevamandal. In the biosphere, living beings are interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival. This life-supporting system is known as the ecosystem. The plants provide us with timber, shelter to animals, produce oxygen, protect soil for grazing crops, growing crops, act as sheltered belt, give us fruits and vegetables, help in storage of underground water, etc. At the same time, the wildlife includes animals, birds, insects, and aquatic life forms. They provide us milk, meat, herds, and wool, help in pollination of flowers, act as a decomposer in ecosystem, etc. The natural vegetation is a renewable resource, but its judicial use is must. If not utilized in proper manner, it can be lead to loss of life and further more calamities. Wildlife and natural vegetations make a deep connection, so preservation of both can be done simultaneously. We discussed what is biosphere. Biosphere means Jeevamandal, the combination of lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. There only we can find the life that makes Earth as a unique planet. There we can find a different type of living beings, the plants and animals. They are interrelated. These living things have a more bondage or they are interrelated each other. That entire system is called ecosystem. They are supporting each other so that we can preserve it for our future generation. We can preserve this both, the plants and animals, the flora and fauna simultaneously. This is some images. Next, the distribution of natural vegetation. The growth of vegetation depends on temperature and moisture. That we already studied, that we already know. The growth of plants and animals is determined by the temperature and the availability of the water. Forests, grasslands, shrubs and tundra are the major types of vegetation of the world. Grasslands are areas having short stunt trees and grasses grow in the region of moderate rainfall. As the amount of moisture decreases, the size of the trees and the density reduces. Which means in the tropical region, the area which lies in between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, that means the 23.5 degree north and 23.5 degree south region. That region is called the tropical region. There we used to get maximum amount of heat or the sunlight and rain. Due to that, there we can find the dense forest, thick forest region. But where we are not getting enough sunlight or water resources, there we can find more stunned grasses or trees. The next one is the thorny bushes and shrubs. The thorny bushes and shrubs grown in the dry area of low rainfall. The plants of this region have deep roots and leaves of thorny and waxy surface that help to reduce the loss of moisture through transpiration. In the dry region, there we can find the thorny bushes or the scrubs. It have thorny leaves or thorny surface or the waxy surface. It will help the plant to avoid the water usage or the loss of moisture. The next one is the tundra vegetation of cold polar regions, comprises of mosses and lichens, small mosses. There the vegetation is not possible that much, like the trees are not growing in that region. There we can find only the mosses and lichens. Next, evergreen and deciduous are the types of forest. Trees of evergreen forest do not shed their leaves simultaneously in any season or of the year. Deciduous forests shed their leaves in a particular season. The evergreen forest and deciduous forest mainly we can find in the tropical region. So there we are receiving maximum amount of sunlight and water resource or nature, that rain. So due to that, there we can find the thick vegetation, and the forest in this region is mainly divided into two. One is evergreen forest and second one is deciduous forest. Evergreen, throughout the year it is green in color. That means these trees will not shed their leaves in a one particular season. But at the same time, the deciduous forest, during the autumn season, the trees in the deciduous forest, they used to shed their leaves in order to prevent the water usage in the summer season. So in order to preserve the water resources, the deciduous forest used to shed their leaves in a one particular season. That type of forest is called deciduous forest. In Himalayan region of India, mixed forests are found according to their altitude, such as taiga, evergreen forest and deciduous species are found. Next, conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. To protect our natural vegetation and wildlife, national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and biosphere reserves are made. Due to indiscriminate killing, several birds and animals have either become extinct or are on the verge of extinction. For example, the panda, that is in the verge of extinction, or the cheetah. At the same time, the dinosaurs, that is extincted. So we need to preserve all the wildlife, that the flora and fauna. Awareness programs like social forestry and One Maholsava should be encouraged at the regional and community level. We should give awareness to the common people, and with the help of the people, we need to preserve all these resources. It's called the social forestry. We need to make some kind of social awareness programs like One Maholsava. Through these steps, we can preserve our natural resources and wildlife resources. Thank you.